Yeah, I'm good. Welcome into the Awesemo MMA Live Before Lock show as we're here to get you ready for UFC 270. Of course, goes down tonight. Lock is at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Of course, we lost 2 fights on weigh-in day. Topuria out due to weight cutting, pulled from the fight card by the doctors. Also, of course, we lost another fight with medical reasons, which if you read between the lines to me, tells me the commission pulled the fight over pre-fight medicals because the UFC made it clear that it was not related when we're talking about Rodolfo Vieira, was not related to COVID-19 and was not related to his weight cut. Typically, that means there's something with that pre-fight medicals. That's the reason the commission pulled them out here. But we're here to break this one down for you the next hour. Start lining up those questions in chat. We'll get to those. Of course, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. I'm going to tell you about Prize Picks later on in the show. And I will tell you, there is one play on Prize Picks I really love today. We'll get into that. Plus, tell you about the great promo they got going on over there. So you definitely want to sign up over there at Prize Picks. Talk about that later on in the show. Of course, as always, I am joined by the fighter, Pete Rodgers Jr. Pete, good afternoon, brother. How's things going, man?
Good afternoon, brother. What is up, people? Thank you for joining us. Cannot wait for this card. UFC 270 is going to be great. Heavyweight championship. I'm super excited about that, but I'm more excited about the co-main event, to be honest. I love the lighter weight classes, as you guys know. All in all, want to make us some money. We get to see my boy Jack Della Maddalena tonight. So I'm pumped. I haven't been this pumped about a guy's debut in quite some time.
I'm telling you, this is a true story. I'm sitting here going through Twitter, and I see you talking about your boy Jack, and I'm like, man, it is not too often. My guy Pete over here is just glowing about looking forward to seeing a guy make his UFC debut. It's like, I was like, damn, do I need to up my exposure?
I know I got a couple of messages about that. I have a ton of exposure, and I think the Ilia Topuria fight getting canceled, kind of the automatic pivot is going to be either to Raoni Barcelos or Jack Della Maddalena. So I think a lot of people are going to flock towards him, but anytime you have a UFC debutant, a lot of people are a little hesitant about it. I'm here to tell you, coming from Dana White's Contender Series, I don't really think that a lot of them are UFC ready, but this kid is. He really is. He's up against a tough competitor that I think, despite being, somewhat green at 4-0, he has some pop in his shots. He's a brawler by nature. He's going to throw down with Jack. And I think a stylistic matchup like this will definitely, pay dividends here. And you get to see the skills of Jack in this situation where he can fight from both stances. It's just a matter of a striking matchup. Does a striking matchup turn out to be optimal if they don't get an early KO? That's the only concern I have for DraftKings.
Yeah, well, of course, you mentioned about debut. We have 8 fighters making their UFC debut tonight. You talked a little about that on the strategy show about especially these fighters coming off the Contender Series that, we got to do a deeper dive outside of that fight in the Contender Series to see who's going to get there. One of the things I'll just start this because I brought this up to Pete last night in a text message. True, false? Deiveson Figueiredo is the best value on the slate.
I initially said no. And I mean, I'm still going to say false just because I believe in Brandon Moreno, but I can see where the field will probably agree with you, right? Like, a lot of people really like the former champ in this situation. The value is crazy. Francis at 7,800 and, Deiveson Figueiredo right there at 7,700. It's kind of like a 1A, 1B for go-to underdogs. I'm saying false because of what I saw from Brandon Moreno. I think that you see more of that going forward. I know that some camp adjustments have been made, but I really liked what I saw in the clinch, the wrestling, the double underhook trips and all that stuff. So we'll have to see, but I feel like you're leaning towards true.
On the FanDuel side of the equation, I don't know how it's not true.
Yeah, I mean,
at $14, because when I was, building some lines over on FanDuel, one of the things that I really ran into, and you ran into this right before the show, of you have all these fires that you're trying to get to, and then all of a sudden you get to those last 2 or 3 spots, and you're just like, oh crap, I can only spend like $13-14 average per fighter. So I think over on the DraftKings side of the equation, on the FanDuel side, I think it's true. The DraftKings side of the equation, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not trying to be wishy-washy, but I'm kind of in the middle on that.
Yeah.
My biggest thing about Deiveson Figueiredo heading into this matchup is having a full training camp there at Fight Ready. And obviously, Henry Cejudo has been on the media tour the last week or so because he's obviously trying to come out of retirement. And of course, Fight Ready is his team. And the thing that I found the most interesting that he said was, he says, the way we coach our fighters, it's not about what we are trying to do. Everything is dictated towards the fighters. And look, Figueiredo has looked in incredible shape all week. He's the second guy to get on the scale. He's 1 pound under the limit. He looked good. He was running around. It wasn't something where you saw a guy kind of laboring to get up those stairs to step on the scale. My thing with the Fight Ready team is, can they make Deiveson a patient guy?
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned it before to you, a dog is a dog, and it takes some time to train a dog essentially. And, Deiveson Figueiredo has good minds around him right now, which is great, and probably stronger training partners than he has in the past. It's just a matter of, can it really sink in X amount of weeks leading up to the biggest fight of his life? Can it really sink in? Can he make these adjustments? Because when push comes to shove, when the pressure is on, you kind of resort back to what's a habit. And, Deiveson Figueiredo has plenty of good habits. I do think that his gas tank is somewhat suspect. And even when he steps on the scale, like, this yesterday, he looked good. He looked ripped. He looked lean. But I noticed like an elevated heart rate with him. And that's a big tell when somebody's, cutting a tremendous amount of weight throughout their camp, is just an elevated heart rate. Obviously, I'm kind of nitpicking here, just for something that I've noticed throughout tons of weigh-ins over the years. But I think early on, he's always dangerous, and his skills, he can take out anybody within the division. It's just, as this gets stretched out, does history somewhat repeat itself and Brandon Moreno, somewhat turn the tide, or does he get stronger as the fight goes on? We'll have to see. I can't wait. I'm waiting for the call from my boss at work telling me I don't need to come in tonight, because I want to stay home. I want to kick my feet up and I want to watch these fights. But if I have to work, I'm still watching these fights somehow.
Yeah, I'll be on the couch. I'll be watching. I'll be on our score chat all night long. Of course, appreciate everyone that's here on a Saturday afternoon watching the Awesemo MMA Live Before Lock. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe to Awesemo right here on YouTube to keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and so much more. And of course, once you subscribe, be sure to hit that notification bell so you know when a show is live here on the channel. And if you're not an Awesemo Plus member, want to get a peek of what's behind the paywall, today's free premium data and tools are NBA player rankings, NHL top stacks, and UFC pro plays. I put in my pro plays there yesterday. But of course, Pete, we're here to answer everyone's questions. So start lining up those questions. We'll get into it as it does go forth, as I'll start to work my way down that YouTube chat. I would say this, while I was doing my office hours a little earlier, got a lot of questions about stacking the main event and co-main event. I don't believe stacking is a viable option in the main event. Co-main event is an interesting story. I think when you're especially talking about the cash side of the equation here, Pete, because if you believe this fight is going to hit the championship rounds, I don't mind stacking the fight.
No, I mean, we did lose some fights, so I guess it makes some sense. And I paused a couple of my lineups when I was building them, and I was just staring at it and trying to envision a situation where it would happen. In a draw in the first encounter, Brandon Moreno scored 80 fantasy points, so add 30 to that. 110 is what it would have been had he gotten the decision victory. Deiveson Figueiredo in the draw scored 68 fantasy points. He would have scored a 98 in the victory. I don't hate it. Of any fight to stack, the pace, the style, the aggressiveness, everything's on the line in the trilogy. You could do worse than that. Honestly, you could do worse than that, and a lot of people are a little skeptical about putting some of these 7,000 options into their lineup outside of, Figgy or Francis. So I don't hate it. And, I think in a 150 max, it makes a lot more sense than a 20 max. 20 max, I feel like you're kind of drawn dead.
Yeah. We'll tell you, looking at the props on this fight, the two props that stuck out to me, Moreno via submission plus 275. Of course, saw that in the last fight. Figueiredo via TKO KO, Pete, plus 550.
Okay, and the reason for that, right, is it's a credit to Brandon Moreno's toughness and his durability throughout the years. Extremely, extremely difficult to get out of there. 19-5 overall, and he has yet to been knocked out in a situation. He was choked out on the Ultimate Fighter against Alexandre Pantoja, but man, he's got that Mexican warrior spirit, and he's always going to fight to the bell. And if you're a fan of fighting, you understand that spirit is something serious to behold. And it's a credit to his chin, man, because Deiveson Figueiredo against anybody else within the division in a fight, his KO prop will be sitting probably at like a plus 150, plus 125, something around that range. So a little wide because it's definitely still a fight, but I think it just goes to show you how people have put some respect on Brandon Moreno's name.
Kevin, I appreciate you there in the super chat. Says, thanks for all the hard work, fellas. Good luck tonight. Good luck to you, Kevin. Appreciate there on the super chat as well. Of course, if you do a super chat, we'll get to your questions. You'll go right to the top of the line. So appreciate that there, Kevin. Andrew says, who would be a couple of cash game plays on FanDuel? I think you got to look at Brandon Moreno, $17. I think would be a good cash play over there.
Yep.
Obviously, and you've talked about Jack Della, an expensive option over there.
If he loses tonight, bro, if he loses tonight, I feel like I might not like ever live it down because I'm so high on him.
If I was going to maybe label out a third one, probably Matt Frivola. I feel like this is a get back right fight for Matt Frivola.
I like that fight in general. I don't really care about the side I get within it. Matt Frivola, we've seen more against UFC competition, even Dana White's Contender Series. You've seen that aggressive punching power, takedown ability. And I feel like you're correct on that, where Matt Frivola has fought some legitimate competition throughout his tenure with the company. This is the same guy that pulled off a unanimous decision victory over Jalen Turner. Jalen's a monster for that division. Scored 4 takedowns against him, 4 takedowns against Luis Peja, got the split decision there. So his durability is kind of the only knock against him. So he needs to avoid the big shot. But I like Frivola's wrestling today. And, I view that fight as a GPP priority.
Eric goes, won so much of Madalena after watching earlier this week, and so many of my lineups for mini-max came out with Rodriguez due to ownership. Am I drawing dead?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to have too many Rodriguez today. And I'll tell you what, the film on Rodriguez is not bad. Going back, and I initially thought that this guy was probably going to be like a pushover, and he's got skills. He has hands. He has power. He has quick finishes. With those quick finishes, obviously, there are a lot of unknowns. We don't know how he's going to perform when he's tested, when he's pushed back, when he's outside that 3-minute mark of round number 1. His grappling is interesting as well because he, if anybody's fighting Jack Della Maddalena, they need to take him down. Standing with him is just a recipe for disaster. So Rodriguez as an ultimate flyer against a heavy favorite, you could do worse. But let's also remember that he hasn't had a full camp, and Jack Della was originally scheduled to face against Warley Alves. So I think that kind of goes to show you the promise and confidence the UFC company has in him to debut against such a veteran like that.
Next up, Kevin mentioned, he says, Figueiredo in the captain spot seems like some serious leverage over there. I will tell you, after we did the strategy show, and then once we got the FanDuel salaries out, then I really started looking into our ownership projections. And Figueiredo was one of those guys I really looked at because I'm sitting there saying, okay, if Figueiredo goes out there and wins, he's going to be approaching, in a win, low win, 85 points, I think, in a win.
Yeah, anytime I like leverage, and a lot of the best DFS players out there is just targeting that leverage and where you can have more leverage in the field. So I don't hate that. Just the fight in general should score plenty of fantasy points. I got to tell you, I have pretty high ownership of that co-main event.
Next up, Dylan says, hey, Pete, thanks for those parlay plays you liked last week. You like anybody tonight to throw in a parlay?
I had Topuria, Jack Della Maddalena, but I had it somewhat, tied to a prop. Now, obviously, we lost Topuria. So It's not really a parlay card for me. I'm going to kind of pick my shots here and there. And something that I did find interesting, Jack Della in round one sits at a pretty nice number, but Jack in round two is, I think, plus 300, plus 350, something like that. So I think they're both interesting. I expect him to get his opponent out of there within, 3 rounds.
Mention about our ownership projections. If you want to get access to those ownership projections, you got to sign up for an Also Plus Pass. You get a weekly pass for $29.95, gives you access to everything we have over there at awesemo.com, including ownership projections, player projections, and so much more. If you just want also MMA weekly pass, you can get those as low as $2.95 weekly. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Look at that top fire tool as well. It's a great tool to kind of look at things in terms of, all the key stats that we have out there to help you develop those lineups here for UFC 270. Nathan says, is a Moreno Figgy fight a must no matter what side you have? That is a yes to me.
I'm most of my lineups have them. It's tough to get away from it. The price is affordable. They have 5 rounds to work with. Extreme work rate from both of them. So yeah, it's a yes.
Andrew says, feels like if Francis wins, he scores well. If Gans wins, it's a 60-point decision. So me and Pete were talking about this before the show.
Yeah.
You have a fight of 2 guys who have trained together. Their version of training together seem to be different based on that press conference. The way Francis has it and the way Surreal has it here. And you mentioned a great point in the strategy show. When you have a power puncher in Francis, when he's sparring somebody, he's not going to be sparring like he's going to fight tonight. I do think the bigger cage does help out Surreal Gane in this situation. The fact of if there is, Francis comes in blitzing, gives him more room to kind of move around. I know there's a diagram on Twitter that really outlines how much of a difference it is as opposed to that smaller cage that you see in the UFC Apex, a 25-footer, as opposed to a 30-footer you see in pay-per-view type shows. But I could see this being a low volume fight.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we have to consider.
Yeah. So it's 30% more. So the bigger cage definitely will play into a fighter that has either better footwork or better control of the range. And let me tell you that, Cyril Gane needs to be on the outside, needs to be utilizing his footwork. I watched that sparring footage. It was like a 2 or 3 minute clip of them. And obviously you kind of like look at that with like a grain of salt and not really judge it too much because they both have developed over the years. But if I were to take anything from that, whenever Cyril Gane was orthodox, Francis Ngannou felt comfortable and was able to tee off and land combinations. Whenever Cyril Gane turned into a southpaw and was a little bit more bladed with his stance, a little bit more bounce in his step, you did see Francis Ngannou somewhat freeze at times. And I feel like it's a matter of experience of fighting and competing against southpaws. And southpaws are a different look. And that's why in boxing, a lot of fighters and a lot of coaches will avoid fighting southpaws. It's completely different. And a guy in Cyril Gane who can give you looks from both sides, I like to fight. I really do like to fight. And with everything being said, in sparring, you're not going to throw 100% unless you're a jerk. There are moments when you're going to pick up the tempo, pick up the power. Absolutely. He has been hit a lot harder from Francis Ngannou than what we saw. But I feel like people are somewhat underestimating the power of Cyril Gane as well. Like they feel like he's just a technician who can just outpoint Francis Ngannou. I'm telling you, man, this guy's got pop. He has good Muay Thai. He has knockouts to his credit. He has takedowns in his back pocket. So I just can't wait for the fight. I'm still favoring Cyril Gane. But if you tell me that Francis gets lucky and lands one shot and it's over, he's the guy to do it.
Next up, Trish says, we going back and forth on Giles and Morales. Only worry is that Morales gets hit too much.
It's tough because you have Giles coming off of a knockout defeat, dropping down a weight class, took some time off. I like the time off. I didn't think that he looked like he was going to be stronger, but he's accustomed to fighting stronger guys. This is a very difficult UFC debut. I don't think Trevin Giles is all that great, but Morales, he has a ton of knockouts to his credit. And I was looking at a lot of tape and he's still pretty raw with his technique. But what kind of bailed him out in the Contender Series was his takedowns. And I actually think Trevin Giles outside of leaving his neck out there, I think that he can defend and stuff some takedowns. So it's a lot for a 21-year-old to make a UFC debut against a guy who's kind of been in there with some tough people. So I'm still favoring Trevin Giles. Not my favorite fight to target despite the price range, but if you like Michael Morales today, I mean, 10 of his 12 wins come by way of finish, 9 by KO, 1 by submission. So you could do worse than this guy, this unknown wild card that's priced at 8,200.
AJ says, does Oliveira have the best chance to finish for an underdog not named Francis?
I mean, I would say I would just kind of easy answer say no, because Figueiredo can easily finish. The submission ability is always there. Oliveira is tough. He has, let me take a peek at this. It's his grappling that's kind of the only thing that is interesting. His wrestling will definitely not be on par to handle Tony Gravely's pressure. It's just Gravely's, fight IQ and mental lapses on the mat. So Simon Oliveira has 18 victories, 5 by KO, 11 by submission. That is 61% of his wins come by way of submission. So against the guy who has been finished quite often in his defeats, Tony Gravely, 21-7. I'm getting to plenty of Simon Oliveira, but again, another UFC debutant, kind of be careful here.
Yeah, that was when I was hand building some lineups. The Gravely Oliveira fight was a fight I was looking at because, I mean, look, we know who Tony Gravely is. Right. When Tony Gravely is having success, it is him utilizing his grappling. The concern, though, if you are a Gravely backer, is what if Oliveira can keep this fight on the feet? Does he crack that chin, get the finish, or something to kind of think about there? Tony brings up Syed Nurmagomedov, and we always talk about there's fighters that it's like, who are we not talking about? And usually, more times than not, it's a fighter who's an extreme underdog. Maybe it'd be like this situation, maybe a Victor Henry. But I do think Said Nurmagomedov is one of those fighters that we're not talking about. And Tony said, asking about putting Syed in the MVP spot over there on FanDuel. I mean, I will say this: it would be a great way to separate yourself from the field. This is my concern with that fight, and I do find myself getting to a lot of Cody Stamann, and my thought is, look, Syed, he may have that last name Nurmagomedov, but he's not Habib when it comes to grappling. He wants to keep the fight on the feet. Yeah. For Cody Stamann, if you're putting him in your lineups, which I am, my hope is 5 takedowns, a lot of control time.
5. Okay.
Shots on the ground, because the reality is I do understand if Cody Stamann wins this fight, highly, highly likely it's by decision. 8 of his 9, fights in UFC have gone decision. So it's not a fight in terms of GPP that I love. A cash game, I love putting Cody Stamann in a cash game lineup. But to me, Syed Nurmagomedov may be that guy that we're just not talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, Cody Stamann, real quick, in a draw against Song Yadong, a lot of people thought he won that fight, scored 68. Okay. So technically would have scored 98 had that decision gone his way. The wrestling's there, right? That's with 4 takedowns in that fight. Said Nurmagomedov is a guy that I'm extremely light on today. And the reason being is he's not a grappler. So where are we getting points from? Okay, well, we need him to get a finish, right? Or just an absolute all-star breakout performance. Of his 14 victories, only 4 of them come by way of KO, and only 3 of them come by way of submission. I think Cody Stamann is more live to getting submitted against somebody than he is getting knocked out. I think that his stand-up is pretty damn solid. Nothing too crazy. But this is just we're not talking about Syed Nurmagomedov. I kind of just want other people to take him. And if he just kind of just blows the doors off and hits Stamann with a flying knee or a spinning hook kick, I mean, if that 10%er happens, I'm kind of okay with it. You play the odds. I don't really think it happens all that often at 8,600.
Cameron brings out one of the narratives in the main event. We talked about that narrative of former training partners, but of course the other narrative is the Francis Ngannou contract situation. Cameron says, what do you guys think about the narrative that Ngannou throws it to guarantee free agency? No, he's not going to throw it. I mean, look, it's, if you want to get out of the contract right now, the absolute best case scenario is a split decision loss where everyone believes he won the fight, but the fact is, if he goes out there and can knock Cyril Gane out in the first round, that helps his leverage as well. I mean, look, the guy wants to get paid. He's 35 years old, but the big thing for him is got to be is if he goes out there. I mean, and we talk about a Mike Tyson MMA. That is what Francis Ngannou is. And if he goes out there and just wrecks Ciryl Gane, that's going to help his leverage and contract negotiations.
100%. I mean, you want to ride out, on top, and not many people get that opportunity. Even look at Amanda Nunes right now, right? Like, she did not expect to have to deal with this adversity at this point of her career. She was so dominant. And that's why when fighters kind of go out, with their own choice, I really support it. And Francis picking up a win over a former training partner is huge, even though they had limited training. I have to tell you that I've been thinking and kind of just like going back and forth in my own head since our original podcast. And you mentioned about the coaching advantages with Eric Nixick and Ciryl Gane's coach. I forget his name right now, but
Fernando Lopez.
Thank you. And you say advantage Eric Nixick. I agree with that from a skill set standpoint of who's the better coach. But I do almost feel like Ciryl Gane has the advantage because Fernando Lopez coached Francis Ngannou for X amount of years. He knows him so well. There is development there, Jason, but I feel like that kind of might point the needle back in Ciryl Gane's direction. Do you happen to agree with me? You feel different?
My thing on that is when you look at since Eric Nixick took over Francis Ngannou, look, there are certain things you see with Francis that you just go, man, that's just not very good. Footwork, I think, is one thing that really sticks out to me. But I think if you look at the improvements, think about, being able to sprawl against Stipe there in that second fight. I mean, we were all watching that fight going, oh crap, Francis can stop a takedown.
Scary guy.
Extremely scary guy out there. So, I mean, look, it's in terms of a heavyweight title fight, this is probably the biggest UFC heavyweight title fight in a long time. You could make a case. This is the biggest UFC heavyweight title fight since Kane JDS won.
That's what I was going to say. That is exactly what I was going to say. I mean, this is big. This is a big deal. And also you have international talent. So it's like, tons of chips involved. I can't wait regardless. I feel like, I want to see the game plan from Ciryl Gane. Obviously, he has to execute it, but what does Fernando Lopez kind of have up his sleeve that they know him so well, or at least, to the core, they know some dark secrets about Francis Ngannou. And is it going to be released? It needs to be in this matchup. So I can't wait.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes down there. Of course, so this is also MMA Live for Lock Show. We are sponsored by Prize Picks, and Prize Picks has got a special going on right now that you want to take advantage of. And the special they have going on right now is if Patrick Mahomes throws at least 1 yard on Sunday, you win. Yeah, 1 yard on Sunday, you win. You got to take advantage of this free square up until the Chiefs and Bills kick off. Of course, when you sign up over there at Prize Picks, you'll get 1 free month of Also Plus Platinum. When you sign up and make a deposit at Prize Picks, you'll receive an email within 24 to 48 hours after you redeem your free month of Also Plus Platinum. And I mentioned earlier in the show, there is a line over there at Prize Picks that I really do like, and it is the significant strikes number over there. Vanessa Denopoulos, 59.5. Pete, I like the under on this one big time.
Yeah, I mean, I hate the fight in general, but I'll probably agree with you on that the under or the less is the direction to go with that one.
And when looking at the other things, when I was making some plays over there at Prize Picks today, was I was really looking at the takedowns. And there's 3 fighters that really stuck out to me: Kay Hansen, Matt Frivola, Hani Barcelos. Barcelos 1.5, Frivola 2, Hansen 1.5.
Okay, I'm with you. The only one I'm not with you on, and it's a fighter that we haven't spoken of, is Kay Hansen, and that's probably somebody that has a savvy submission game. I'm not convinced she's the better wrestler in this situation. I know that Jasmine Jasudavicius is a strong wrestler in her own right, competing in freestyle wrestling, tons of experience in that realm, and her length and 5-inch or 6-inch reach advantage in this matchup should definitely benefit her, and the Muay Thai plum and the clinch. So I'm going to say less on that Kay Hansen. I'm not convinced. I think she's going to play off of her back, and she might get ground pounded into oblivion. That's my bold call of like, I'm a little bit bullish on Jasmine Jasudavicius just because you're going to get ugly somewhere in your lineup, right? If you're playing DFS correctly, you shouldn't feel comfortable with a lot of your lineups. You should feel comfortable about 4 out of your 6 fighters, but you have to get different. Jasudavicius at 7,400 with all these like physical advantages. I think that I'm a little bit over the field to her.
Yeah, I would just tell you. And by the way, the Hansen takedown now is up to 2 over there at Prize Picks. I got it 1.5. So you got to take advantage of that when you can there. And of course, you can do cross sports, which allows you to get to that Patrick Mahomes prop, which you just click that, you click over, because he is going to throw for more than 1 yard tomorrow when they take on the Bills there. So be sure to check out our sponsor, Prize Pick. You get 1 free month of Also Plus Platinum when you sign up, deposit, and play over at Prize Picks. You be sure to use that promo code Awesemo over there at Prize Picks. Of course, appreciate their support here on the Also MMA Live Before Lock and also the Strategy Show as well. Let's get to some more questions. I do want to get a question that we got over in our subscriber chat. Blackbird asking about a MVP for a FanDuel cash play. I gotta imagine, Pete, for you, that has got to be Jack Della.
Yeah, I mean, that's my guy. So I made a couple lineups on FanDuel, and that is definitely who I put in that spot. I have fears about the situation because he's not facing a scrub, but I don't think that Jack needs to face a scrub in order to have breakout performances. I'm telling you, this kid is legit. It's just a matter of if he finds the finish. He's going to win the fight tonight.
Last man in from Anthony asking about Giles or Ngannou. I'd rather go the Ngannou route.
Yeah, I mean, if you go the Ngannou route, just know that you're probably going to be duped, and a lot of people are probably going to have that. Fading the main event is an interesting take, thinking that Ciryl Gane wins in a low-scoring affair. And Giles, man, facing a UFC newcomer. I don't hate either one. I'm going to, even though I'm picking Ciryl Gane, I'm still going to say that Francis Ngannou, he's pound for pound the best value on the slate, just given his power. I mean, come on. A lot of people, recency bias, he's not even coming off a loss. It's just narrative street kind of just derailing this hype train of Francis Ngannou.
Next up, Steven says, in single entries, would you consider fading Gane versus Francis?
Yeah, kind of exactly, to piggyback off what I just said. Yes.
I mean, look, if you really want to get different tonight, and I don't like going this route, but if you want to get different, Pete, avoid the main event, co-main event.
Yeah, both is tough for me.
Yeah, I know.
That's 10 rounds of possible points. I don't think that. I think the co-main event is going to have fantasy goodness attached to it. It's the main event that's kind of tricky.
But it's just like, you're talking about in a slate trying to get different. Because like I was thinking about this earlier of if you are someone that says, you know what, I'm just throwing a single bullet into the DraftKings big GPPs. And, if, you're going to have to take some major chances. I know when I was putting together my entries today, and especially, one of the things I like to do, like if it's a single entry type thing, single bullet type thing for me, I look at what Fantasy Cruncher spits out for me to kind of just give me an idea. The one thing is I was getting a lot of Andre Fijo. I was getting a lot of Jasmine, and I'm like, man, you don't feel going there, but that, you're gonna, to take down a big contest like that, you're going to have to hit 2 underdogs that no one else is going to be on.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring this point up and I just want to touch on it real quick. It's a matter of getting different depending on the contest you're in. Sometimes people play a little too cute for small stake contests, and you don't need to do that because in small stakes contests, I won't say that I guess I can say this. The competition isn't how it is at the high stakes. All right. The 555 where everybody's, playing optimal plays with strong possibilities of reaching and probabilities of reaching the optimal. You're probably more knowledgeable than the majority of the field within those small stakes contests. So don't get too cute. get more different as you climb the ladder of all these contests. So you start approaching the 20, the 15, you know what I mean? And then you start going up to the hundreds and whatnot. That's when you got to start to really separate yourself from the field. Just play the best plays for the lower stake contests.
Next up, Lewis asked Madoff and Jasmine or Valdez at Timopoulos for a GPP.
God, jeez.
Oh man, that is
I'll say the first one, but I mean, I'm not the biggest Nurmagomedov guy tonight.
God, the Timopoulos Juarez fight just scares the crap out of me. It's a low-level UFC female matchup where if the fight plays out on the feet, to me, it's advantage Juarez. If the fight plays out on the ground, it's advantage Timopoulos. It is just like you look at the early fights on this card. Okay, so the first fight of the night, you got Kay and Jasmine. Okay, we both know what each of them wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Frevola Valdez is probably a key fight that you have to have in GPPs.
Agree.
And then Juarez Timopoulos, like, I really don't want to get there, but if you tell me that the winner of that is optimal, it wouldn't shock me.
Volatility. But with volatility comes crazy outcomes. So sprinkle your exposure to that fight. There are poor habits from both fighters. Timopoulos comes forward like an everlast punching bag at times. And, Silvana Gomez Juarez is very, very good at striking. So I really feel like she could light her up like a Christmas tree in striking affairs. Timopoulos will do Imanari rolls, roll for leg locks, do all crazy unorthodox techniques. And coming from an improved and better camp, I'm sure they're tailoring the entire game plan around her strength. She's not going to go out there and strike the whole time. I hope not. She's going to look to utilize her strong grappling. So I feel like it's a sneaky fight that we're not talking about it because it's ugly. We got that, we stapled it with the ugly stamp. But with volatility comes DFS scores. So I definitely took some stands of the 7,900 Gomez Juarez in case this does stay on the feet and people are somewhat a little bit too biased from her terrible performance against Lupita Godinez, who I actually think is pretty strong within the division.
Is that Everlast line a Pete Senior line?
Yeah. How'd you know? How'd you know it was my dad? Yeah.
It just sounded like something that your dad would say.
Yeah. We had a couple of people that used to train with us that were definitely Everlast punching bags. But yeah, I mean, when lateral movement is not in your vocabulary and you just come forward, like Darren Elkins, you get that little label attached to you. So all in all, a fight that probably a majority of people are going to skip over, and it's definitely a leverage fight.
Barcelos or Madalena in the MVP spot on FanDuel. I think those are both two great options.
1A, 1B.
Yeah. I think that's where, Andrew, if you're an Also Plus member, that's where I think you got to look at our ownership projections to kind of help make you make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I agree with you. Anytime you look at ownership and you want to take stance, that's what I do. I go off of my gut. I see what the ownership's at. I see some things and I'll increase or decrease, depending.
Does Gane make the optimal lineup is the question. Jeffrey says, I say no.
I'm hoping yes, because I have him, right? I'm hoping yes. If he's not, then the lineups that I'm kind of building for that particular situation are going to come into play. You have to, whenever you're playing all sports, just kind of like when you're trying to envision how certain NFL games are going to go, you have to predict what you think is going to happen. If they get out to a large lead and one team's forced to throw and then they're going to run the clock out on the opposite end, you know what I mean? Like if Gane is not optimal, I created a bundle of lineups that will probably do just fine for that situation.
Next up, Kevin asks, who's going to be the fighter that could break the slate tonight?
Who's going to be the fighter that's going to break the slate?
So immediately I start looking at underdogs in this equation. So I look at someone like an Andre Fijo. We know the power that he has in his hands. I look at someone like a Victor Henry. No one's going to get to Victor Henry tonight. And if I'm looking at the favorites, I look at someone like a Tony Gravely,
yes,
a Matt Frevola,
wrestlers.
I don't think we're talking much about Michelle Peja. The one thing that if you want to be a Fijo backer, here's, I think, the one thing that you know about Michel Peja. This is a guy that does things in a fight that he wastes energy that he doesn't need to waste energy on.
Yeah. It's like button mashing Street Fighter, just doing a whole bunch of unnecessary moments. I would agree with you. And coming from a strong camp, it makes sense to have, Fialho as an underdog. I have a couple lineups with him. I think that he hits damn hard. And I do think that, Michel Peja's recklessness can definitely lead to him walking into something, but not something that I'm truly backing in a situation like this. Obviously, we always want to think about, what underdogs are going to break the slate, but a lot of times it's which favorites are going to break the slate, because if you are a little underweight to certain favorites, then you're kind of going to be SOL for a lot of your lineups. I think it kind of comes down to Matt Frivola and Tony Gravely for me, just two of the most upside wrestlers on the slate. Tony Gravely against the guy in Simon Oliveira, who doesn't have the best wrestling defense at all, but he has jiu-jitsu. So I kind of view these both as volatile matchups, and that's where I set a group on Awesemo.com using Fantasy Cruncher, and I made sure I got to one of these guys in each of these two fights.
The two favorites I think you have to look at as potential slate breakers, because of there are certain fighters that everyone's getting to. Two fighters are at that upper end that, are not getting as much. Kay Hansen, Michel Peja. I think those are two ways to get different. Kevin asked if there's any love for Kay Hansen. I mean, look, I have plenty of Kay Hansen, but really? my thought is her getting the fight to the ground, using jiu-jitsu. I will tell you the prop bet of her winning by submission is plus 350.
That's how I think she'll win. I don't think that she needs to find a sneaky sub with Jasuda Vicious kind of like, getting sloppy on the mat. And Kay Hansen's done it time and time again. Reverses positions, throws up Hail Mary subs, and she catches people. Arm bars from guard, definitely legitimate. We got 300 people in here for arguably the biggest UFC pay-per-view in quite some time. So if you guys could do us a favor and hit that like button, shoot your questions into chat. We got a couple more minutes. All in all, we cannot wait for these fights.
Best underdog, 76 and under.
Jasuda Vicious for me.
For me, I would probably go Cody Stamann.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's got to get takedowns. Has to get takedowns.
Rank these: Jasuda Vicious, Valdez, Stamann.
Stamann 1, Jasmine 2, Valdez 3.
Wow. Okay. I got Jasmine, Valdez, Stamann. All right.
Interesting. Of course, one of the things that Pete and I love to see after the fights are over are those winning screenshots to get you into the Awesemo Hall of Fame. Of course, you got to be rocking that Awesemo avatar over on your DFS profile. You get that over awesemo.com/avatar. Tweet your wins to @Awesemo HOF. You win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum if you finish in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants. Only one free month can be awarded to a user per calendar year. So kudos to Derek over there taking down second place in NFL contest, winning $25,000. Make sure you save some of that money for the tax man, because they are going to come calling there. Lockbear also win $10K over there in an NFL showdown contest. Hoops Data taking down second place in the NBA mini mix contest. Also, you had Balagond. Whatever, taking out 30,000, also 3,000. Kudos to you there. Also, you had Bill taking down an NHL contest over there as well. It's our guy Dave, who I know is always over there in our chat. He took down some parlays over there. So congratulations to you over there. Hope to see those winning lineups here tonight for UFC Vegas number 2 or UFC 270. I'm so used to saying UFC Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because I've done a couple of UFC Vegas 47 interviews over the past couple of days. So be sure to check that. That's one of the things. I did have Brand Royval on my podcast this week. And he's expecting a fight of the year type fight out of Moreno Figueiredo. He did say that he does favor Moreno the longer the fight goes. Oh,
so he did pick. Okay. All right. Yeah, I like Moreno as well.
Yeah, he thinks that if it's a fight that ends quickly, that it's Figueiredo, but the longer it goes, he does like Moreno in that situation. Next one says, I see myself finding variance by filling 2 spots with the first 2 fights of the night. Is Demopoulos and Hansen the way to go? That's the way I would go. but man, I don't trust Demopoulos. I don't trust Juarez.
I might have a small parlay with their opponents together, just because I think that they're both close fights, and I'm not convinced that they're going to be able to implement the correct game plan in each fight. So we'll have to see. Yeah, ugly fight.
Andrew says someone mentioned playing Valdez in the MVP spot on FanDuel for GVP. Would you guys agree with that?
No. Buddy, if you do that and it comes through, you need to go play Powerball tomorrow, because there are so many good fighters on this card. And I do think that she has some upside given the matchup. That is ridiculous in the MVP.
Tony asked for thoughts on Michelle Peja versus Andre Fijo. I mean, look, the one thing that I think can be frustrating about watching Michelle Peja is just the unnecessary things that he does in a fight that just zaps his energy. But to me, he's got to play capoeira, and he's got to make this a ranged fight and not get into a brawl with Andre Fijo.
Is it frustrating, or is it like completely hilarious? And
okay. If he's in your lineup, it's frustrating.
Okay, true. Very true. If you have money attached to him, you should know what you're getting into. All right. It kind of comes with like a warning. But with all that, complete unorthodox techniques comes a lot of unique finishing ability. So this guy is going to be probably one of the first people to knock somebody out with a front flip or a back flip, something wild.
Next one, Ron goes, I'm just going to say, I'm sorry for doubting Cater last week. You guys were 100% right. I'll proceed to shut my mouth during the show.
No, buddy, it's good to voice your opinions, because like it's fighting. And if you have a read on somebody, by all means, and as long as it's an educated read, that's fine. We just happen to know a little bit more about Cater up in this New England scene for me, and Jason with some friendships along the way with the New England cartel or whatever.
I've got a good relationship with the New England cartel. It was actually I don't know if you saw this. Tyson put a picture up on his Instagram today of Calvin's mom, and they embraced after the fight was over, and he really talked about kind of where they were a year ago. Mm-hmm. And all the text messages, all the messages on social media, and to see how he bounces back. I mean, we live in a sport where we very much just remember the last time we saw you. We don't think about the entire body of work, and I think that's just another situation where we can't overanalyze one fight versus another.
For sure, recency bias. You're only as good as your last fight. Unfortunately, we have to wait until the next fight camp and the next fight that is months away to redeem ourselves. We don't have next Sunday to go out there and redeem ourselves. But yeah, excellent performance from Cater.
Of course, this is also MMA live before a lock show. Of course, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Already over 100 likes. Let's try to get that over 150 before we get out of here. Of course, coming up next is NBA Deeper Dive. Guys, get you ready for tonight's NBA slate. So, Pete, let's try to do some little rapid fire questions. Get most of these questions as we can before we get out of here. Favorite FanDuel captain? I'm pretty sure I know who Pete's going to say.
Jack.
Brandon Moreno for me.
Okay.
Morales or Giles?
Giles.
I picked Morales on the show on Thursday. I'll stick with my pick, but man, it's one of those things. That's a fight that I'm interested to see what does Giles look like if this fight hits the third round with his first drop to 170.
Yeah, I don't know if he really looked all that great.
Let's see here. Madalena or Barcelos on FanDuel, both same price, or play both.
Shoot, if you can play both over on that platform, that's okay. You just got to get to some cheap fighters, which is a little difficult on FanDuel.
Matt says, what a crazy fight of red flags, but I will say Demopoulos looked bad with reckless abandonment. Juarez looked bad. Like, what am I doing here, and how do I escape? To me, that fight just ultimately just comes down to, does it play on the fight? Is it play on the feet, or is it play down on the ground? Thomas says, Cody Stamen breaks slate, too much spinning stuff from Syed, 8 takedowns.
Yeah, it's just a matter of if, UFC stats kind of really counts them. You know what I mean? Like we'll have to see what's counted as a slip, what's a takedown. But yeah, he needs to patch that up if he wants success.
Favorite MVP and underdogs over there on FanDuel. Underdog on FanDuel for me is Figueiredo at $14.
Jasuda Vicious at 11, I think is just hilarious. It's too cheap.
Adam says, do we think Giles looks better at the new weight class? Look great on the scale. We'll have to see what he looks like tonight in the fight.
I thought he looked a little weak, but it's tough to say.
How bad is Oliveira's defensive wrestling? Wonder if Gravely's takedown city is the play.
It looked bad. Oliveira's wrestling looked bad. It's his submission skills that definitely make me even want to consider putting him in my lineups.
Jasmine or Fijo? I feel you're gonna go Jasmine. I'll go Fijo on that one.
Okay.
And that would be punt plays for me. Straight up punt plays. Nothing more, nothing less in terms of that one. We'll try to get a couple more in here before we get out of here. Of course, NBA Deeper Dive is coming up next. Matt says a lot of gas on this card could get gassy. You know, here's the other thing that's also interesting about this card, and we should have this here. I'm not sure if we'll get it before lock or not. California State Athletic Commission weighs these fighters today to see what they're weighing.
They're doing that?
Yes.
Oh boy.
So could be interesting to see what does Figueiredo weigh on fight day in comparison to what he weighed in at. I think he's going to be 142, by the way.
None of us want to fight in California because you'll be getting bumped up 2 weight classes.
That is very true. But of course, that is going to do it for the Awesemo MMA Live for Lock. Thanks to our sponsor, Prize Picks. Coming up next, we've got NBA Deeper Dive. So stay tuned. Those guys get you ready for tonight's NBA slate. Of course, I'll be over in Discord chat during the fights tonight. So be sure to, if you're also a member, to chat with me during the fight. So that's going to do it for this edition of Live for Lock. We will see you in 2 weeks for the next strategy show. Yeah, no fights next week.
Come on.
No fights next week. We'll be back here at the beginning of February for the UFC Vegas card, which is headlined by, at this point, I have no idea because I live by a week-by-week basis.
That's right, baby. I have no idea either. But all in all, we can't wait to be back. And thank you guys for the continuous support and good luck tonight.
And we'll talk to you there in 2 weeks. Have a great night, everybody. And let's get some great fights tonight. See you later.